Why was no one helping her? 12 women stood frozen in that changing room at Fort Bragg. Some clutched towels against themselves. Others were halfway through pulling on uniforms. Every single one of them watched as Staff Sergeant Mason Blake pressed his massive hands against the wall on either side of Hazel Winter's shoulders. His 63 frame towered over her. She barely reached 56. The metallic slam of the locker door still echoed in the air, like a gunshot, like a warning no one wanted to hear. Come on now, don't make this difficult. Mason's breath reeked of cigarettes and arrogance as he leaned in closer, trapping her completely. Just a few drinks. What's the harm? Hazel stood perfectly still in her wrinkled PT uniform. Everything about her screamed ordinary. The slightly oversized army shirt, the standard-issue shorts, the regulation running shoes that had seen better days. Her brown hair pulled back in a simple bun. No makeup. No distinguishing features. Just another supply clerk. Another face in the crowd of Fort Bragg's support personnel. I said no. Her voice was quiet but firm, cutting through the testosterone-filled atmosphere. Connor Hayes laughed from behind them. His hand rested casually on his hip, inches from where everyone knew he kept his folding knife. You think you're in a position to say no? You're an E4 supply specialist. We're airborne, sweetheart. Do you understand the food chain here? The sound of the bolt lock sliding into place was deliberate, meant to be heard. Ethan Cole, Master Sergeant, and the third member of their group had blocked the exit. The message was clear. No one was leaving. Not yet. Mason's fingers found Hazel's chin, forcing her to look up at him. Maybe you need to learn some respect for your superiors. Fuck off. The room went silent. Even the fluorescent lights seemed to hold their breath. Mason's face flushed red, then purple. His hand moved from her chin to her throat in one swift motion, fingers beginning to tighten around her windpipe. What did you just say to me? His voice had dropped to a dangerous whisper. But in Hazel's eyes there was no fear, no panic, just something cold, calculating, patient. Something that Mason, in all his years of military service, had never seen in a supply clerk's eyes before. Something that, in the next 20 minutes, would change everything at Fort Bragg forever. Ryan Mitchell pushed through the door before Ethan could fully lock it. Another sergeant, broader than Mason but shorter, with the kind of thick neck that came from years of deadlifts and protein shakes. Mason, hurry up. We've got formation in 30. He took in the scene and grinned. Or are you playing with your food first? The pressure on Hazel's throat increased. Any normal person would be gasping by now, clawing at the hand cutting off their air supply, but Hazel's breathing remained controlled, her chest rising and falling in measured intervals despite the constriction. Her free hand hung loose at her side, fingers relaxed. Iris Chen, a young private barely out of basic training, fumbled for her phone. Her hands shook as she tried to unlock it, but Connor noticed the movement. Don't even think about it, he warned. His voice carried enough threat to make Iris freeze. This is just a friendly conversation between colleagues, right, ladies? None of the 12 women answered. They'd all heard the stories. They all knew what happened to those who reported the golden boys of the airborne, transfers to remote bases, careers destroyed, reputations ruined. The Brotherhood protected its own. Hazel's stance shifted almost imperceptibly. Her weight redistributed from both feet to a slight forward lean, her shoulders squaring in a way that would only be noticeable to someone who knew what to look for. The fluorescent light caught something on her neck, old scar tissue, faint but distinctive, running from below her left ear down toward her collarbone. Someone should call security, Lily Anderson whispered from the corner where she'd been changing. She was a fellow E4, worked in medical supplies, had been at Bragg for 2 years without incident. The tremor in her voice betrayed her fear, but she spoke anyway. Blake Thompson, a private first class who had been doing push-ups in the corner, moved to stand beside Ethan at the door. Nobody's calling anybody. This is a private matter. He cracked his knuckles for emphasis. Through the chokehold, Hazel spoke with perfect clarity. Last chance. Mason actually laughed. The sound bounced off the concrete walls, harsh and mocking. You threatening me, supply clerk. You going to paper cut me to death. Maybe throw some requisition forms at me. The door opened again. Captain Ashley Brooks entered. She was off duty, had just finished her morning run. Sweat still glistened on her forehead. She took in the scene. A staff sergeant with his hand around a specialist's throat, multiple soldiers creating a barrier, a room full of silent witnesses. She hesitated. This was the moment, the crossroads where authority was supposed to intervene, where rank was supposed to protect the vulnerable. Captain Brooks was a Ranger-qualified officer with 12 years of service. She'd served 2 tours in Afghanistan, earned a Bronze Star for valor. She outranked everyone in the room. She looked at Mason, then at Hazel, then at the door. "I didn't see anything," she said quietly and turned to leave. But Hazel's fingers had found something on Mason's wrist, a pressure point that most people didn't even know existed, located precisely between 2 tendons, requiring exact force at exactly the right angle. The kind of thing they didn't teach in basic training. The kind of thing they didn't even teach in Ranger school. The pressure Hazel applied was minimal, barely noticeable to anyone watching, but Mason's hand began to tremble, not from fear, from involuntary nerve response. His grip loosened just a fraction. And in that fraction of a second, everything changed. Hazel moved. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't flashy. It was economical, efficient, and devastating. Her free hand came up, not in a fist, but with fingers extended, striking 3 specific points on Mason's arm in rapid succession. His hand released her throat entirely, the arm going temporarily numb from disrupted nerve signals. Before he could process what had happened, Hazel had pivoted, using his own weight against him. Mason Blake, 220 pounds of muscle and aggression, found himself face first against the lockers, his arm twisted behind his back in a hold that spoke of years of practice. The room exploded in gasps. Connor's hand went to his knife. He had it halfway out of its sheath when Hazel's voice cut through the chaos. "I wouldn't." She hadn't moved from her position holding Mason, hadn't even looked at Connor, but something in her tone made him freeze. This wasn't the voice of a frightened supply clerk. This was the voice of someone who had given orders in situations where following them meant the difference between life and death. "You crazy." Mason started to struggle, but Hazel shifted her grip slightly and he cried out in pain. "Staff Sergeant Blake," she said, her voice conversational, almost friendly. "You're currently in what's called a Kimura lock. If I apply 7 more pounds of pressure, your shoulder will dislocate. At 15 pounds, tendons will tear. At 23, we're looking at permanent nerve damage." She paused, letting that sink in. "Would you like a demonstration, or would you prefer to stop struggling?" The absolute calm in her voice was more terrifying than any shout could have been. Sometimes strength doesn't announce itself. It waits, watches, and when the moment comes, it simply acts. What had they just witnessed? Ryan Mitchell's hand moved toward his sidearm, but Hazel's eyes locked onto his before his fingers even touched the grip. "Sergeant Mitchell, if you draw that weapon, I'll dislocate his shoulder before you clear the holster. Then I'll deal with you. Your choice." Her tone wasn't threatening, it was factual, a weather report. "The sun will rise tomorrow. Rain is likely, your shoulder will be destroyed." Ryan's hand stopped mid-movement. Connor still had his knife partially drawn, uncertainty flickering across his face. This wasn't how things were supposed to go. They were the 82nd Airborne, the elite, the feared, not the ones being afraid. "Here's what's going to happen," Hazel continued, still holding Mason in that impossibly controlled position. "You're all going to step back. You're going to let these women leave. And then we're going to have a very important conversation about boundaries. You think you can take all four of us? Ethan's voice came from the door, trying to sound confident but failing. Hazel's expression didn't change. I don't think I know. She shifted slightly and Mason whimpered. But let's not find out, because what comes after won't be pleasant for any of you. Iris Chen's phone was still in her shaking hands. She finally managed to unlock it, started recording. Smart girl, Hazel said softly. Document everything, every second, every word, because the truth matters even when people try to bury it. Captain Brooks had frozen halfway out the door, her conscience and her career warring visibly on her face. She turned away once. Could she do it again with a camera recording? The other women in the changing room were finding their voices, their courage. Sarah Martinez, a corporal from logistics, moved to stand beside Iris. Then another woman, then another, not speaking, not interfering, just bearing witness. You're making a huge mistake, Mason hissed through gritted teeth. You have no idea who you're messing with, the connections I have, the people who'll. Bury it, Hazel finished for him. Make it go away, destroy the careers of anyone who speaks up. She leaned in closer, her voice dropping. I'm counting on it. I want to see exactly how far the corruption goes. How many people value protecting predators over protecting soldiers? Something in her tone made Mason's blood run cold. Who the hell are you? He whispered. Hazel didn't answer. Instead, she looked at each of the four men in turn, really looked at them. The way a hunter studies prey, the way a predator recognizes threats. Connor, put the knife away, not because I'm afraid of it, but because if you don't, what happens next will haunt you for the rest of your life. Her voice carried absolute certainty. Connor hesitated. Then slowly, very slowly, he slid the knife back into its sheath. Ryan, step away from the door. Let the women leave. Ryan glanced at Ethan, who gave a barely perceptible nod. They both moved aside. The exodus was silent. 12 women filing out, some of them crying, all of them looking back at the small woman who had somehow shifted the entire balance of power in that room. Iris kept her phone recording, backing out slowly, documenting every moment. Captain Brooks remained, rooted to the spot, watching. When the last woman had left, Hazel released Mason's arm. He stumbled forward, rubbing his shoulder, his face a mixture of rage and humiliation and something else. Something new. Fear. You just ended your career, he spat. Assaulting a superior officer, threatening NCOs. You'll be dishonorably discharged within a week. Hazel rolled her shoulders, loosening them. When she spoke, her voice carried the weight of years, decades, lives lived and lost. Staff Sergeant Blake, how long have you been in? 12 years, what's it to you? 12 years, she nodded slowly. I had 17 years in before you even enlisted. The room went still. Bullshit, Connor said, but his voice lacked conviction. You're what, 30, 32? 38, Hazel corrected, and I didn't serve in supply. She pulled off her PT shirt in one smooth motion, revealing a tank top underneath. And scars, so many scars, bullet wounds, shrapnel marks, the kind of damage that didn't come from garrison duty or paperwork. And there, tattooed on her left shoulder blade, partially obscured by scar tissue, a trident. The sealed trident. No way, Ryan breathed. Women can't. Can't what? Hazel's voice was sharp. Can't do what I've already done. Can't survive what I've already survived. Can't be standing here after 17 years of operations you'll never hear about in places that don't officially exist. She pulled her shirt back on, movements deliberate and controlled. My name is Commander Hazel Winter, though most people who have worked with me knew me by a different name, the Ghost. Captain Brooks's knees actually buckled. She caught herself against the wall. The Ghost is a myth, a story they tell in SEAL training to. To what? Hazel asked. To inspire, to terrify, to prove that one operator, invisible and unstoppable, can change the course of a mission. She smiled, but there was no warmth in it. I'm very real, Captain, and I've been watching Fort Bragg for the past 6 months, documenting, recording, building a case." Mason's face had gone pale. "You're undercover." "Was undercover," Hazel corrected. "You just blew my cover, but that's okay, because what you did, what you've all been doing, is more important than any investigation." She looked at each of them. "You represent a cancer in our military, men who use rank and brotherhood to prey on those they're supposed to protect, and today that ends." The siren started then, distant but growing closer. Military police, base security, someone had called it in. "Here's what's going to happen," Hazel said calmly. "You're going to be arrested, charged, court-martialed, and every woman you've harassed, assaulted, or threatened is going to find her voice, because I'm going to make sure they're protected, that they're heard, that they matter." "You can't prove anything," Ethan said, but he didn't sound confident. Hazel pulled out her phone, showed them the screen. 17 women have already given statements. I have messages, emails, witnesses, and Iris's video," she smiled. "The entire base is about to know what you are." The door burst open. MPs flooded in, weapons drawn. "That's the one who assaulted me," Mason shouted, pointing at Hazel. "She attacked a superior officer. Arrest her." The lead MP, a weathered master sergeant named Rodriguez, looked at Hazel, really looked. Then his eyes widened. "Commander Winter." "Sergeant Rodriguez," she nodded. "It's been a while." You were in my SEAL class before you went dark." He turned to his men. "Stand down, all of you." Then to Mason and his group, "You four on the ground, hands behind your heads now." "What?" she just admitted to. "I said down." Rodriguez's voice cracked like thunder. The four men complied, confusion and rage warring on their faces. Rodriguez approached Hazel carefully. "Ma'am, are you all right?" "I'm fine, but there are 17 women on this base who aren't, and hundreds more across the military who live in fear every day because the system protects men like these instead of the soldiers they abuse." She looked at Captain Brooks, who stood frozen against the wall. "Some even watch it happen and walk away, because that's easier than standing up, easier than risking a career, easier than doing what's right." Brooks's face crumpled, tears streamed down her cheeks. "I'm sorry, God, I'm so sorry, I couldn't." "You could," Hazel said quietly. "You chose not to, that's the difference." Sometimes the hardest enemy to fight isn't the one in front of you. It's the system that enables them, the silence that protects them, the fear that feeds them. How many others were out there? The question haunted Hazel as she sat in the base commander's office 3 hours later. Colonel Marcus Trent, a stern-faced man with 30 years of service, studied her from across his desk. His eyes kept drifting to the file in front of him, her real file, the classified one. 17 confirmed incidents, he said finally, in just 6 months, at one installation. "That we know of," Hazel corrected. "The actual number is likely much higher. Most don't report, can't report, won't report." Trent rubbed his temples. "The video is already viral, 500,000 views in 3 hours. The media is camped outside the gates. Congressional offices are calling." He looked up at her. "You've created a firestorm, Commander." "Good. Good." His eyebrows rose. "Do you understand the chaos this will cause? The investigations, the congressional hearings, the damage to the Army's reputation?" "The damage was already there, sir. I just made it visible." Silence settled between them. Outside, the sound of raised voices, protesters, and media trucks created a dull roar. "Why Fort Bragg?" Trent asked finally. "Why here? Why you?" Hazel was quiet for a moment, choosing her words carefully. 5 years ago I lost someone, a teammate, Chief Mia Sullivan, best combat controller I ever worked with. We were on a classified operation in Syria." Her voice remained steady, but something flickered in her eyes. "We got separated. I was extracted. She wasn't. The Navy declared her KIA after 6 months. I'm sorry for your loss, but I don't see." Before that mission, Chief Sullivan had reported sexual harassment from a superior officer. She followed proper channels, filed official complaints, trusted the system. Hazel's jaw tightened. The officer was transferred, given a promotion, and the whispers started that she was difficult, emotional, couldn't handle pressure. When she died, those whispers became her legacy. Trent's expression softened. "Commander." I went dark after that. Requested the deepest, blackest ops available. Places where names don't matter and missions don't exist. I became the ghost because I didn't want to be Hazel Winter anymore. Didn't want to be part of a system that failed her. She stood, moving to the window. Outside, protesters held signs. Justice for Fort Bragg women. Believe survivors. End military sexual assault. But the ghost can only do so much operating in shadows. Real change requires light. So I volunteered for this assignment, went undercover as a supply clerk to see just how bad things really were. She turned back to face him. And what I found, Colonel, was worse than I imagined. Not just Blake and his crew, dozens of others. A culture of silence enforced through fear. Women being told their careers are worth less than a man's reputation. Her phone buzzed. She glanced at it and her entire body went rigid. "Commander." Hazel stared at the screen. A message from an unknown number. Just 2 words and an image. "Still alive." The image was recent, dated 3 days ago. It showed a woman, emaciated and scarred, but unmistakably alive. Unmistakably Mia Sullivan. Hazel's hand shook. 5 years. 5 years of believing her friend was dead. 5 years of carrying that guilt, that rage. "I have to go," she said, her voice hollow. "Commander, we're in the middle of—" "Colonel Trent, with all due respect, nothing we're discussing matters right now." She forwarded the image to a secure number, fingers flying across the screen. "Because someone I thought was dead isn't, and whoever sent this either wants to help me find her or wants to use her as bait." Another message appeared, GPS coordinates and a countdown timer. 72 hours, come alone, or she dies for real this time. Trent moved around the desk. "This could be a trap, you can't just—" "Sir, I appreciate your concern, but if there's even a chance Mia is alive, I'm taking it, with or without approval." "Then at least take backup, a team, resources." Hazel was already heading for the door. "The ghost works alone. It's why I'm still breathing after 17 years. She paused at the threshold. "Those women who gave statements, protect them. The media attention will fade, but the retaliation won't. Make sure they're safe. Make sure their courage matters. And Blake, his crew, the others. Throw the book at them. Every charge, every victim, every incident. Let it be known that the days of protecting predators are over." Trent nodded slowly. "Where will you go?" "Eastern Europe, that's where the coordinates lead." She checked her phone again. The timer continued counting down. "There's a warlord there, Viktor Volkov. We crossed paths during a mission in 2019. He swore revenge. Looks like he's been patient." "Commander, that's suicide. Volkov has resources, connections, an entire army. And I have 17 years of being a ghost. We'll see which matters more." She left without another word. The drive to the airfield was a blur. Her mind raced through scenarios, possibilities, probabilities. Mia alive meant everything changed. The mission in Syria, the extraction, the 5 years of believing she'd failed. But it also meant Mia had been held captive for 5 years, tortured, broken, surviving hell in ways that would destroy most people. At the airfield, a contact was already waiting. Former Delta, now private contractor. He handed her a duffel bag without a word. "Everything you asked for. Weapons, documents, cash. The plane's fueled and ready." "Thank you, Marcus." "Hazel," he caught her arm. "Whatever you're walking into, you don't have to do it alone. I can have a team ready in 6 hours." She shook her head. "This is personal, and Volkov specifically said come alone. He'll have eyes everywhere, Any backup will get Mia killed. Then at least wear a tracker. Let someone know you're alive. She considered, then nodded. He handed her a small device disguised as a watch battery. Passive GPS. Won't ping unless you activate it, but if you do, every operator I know will converge on your location. Let's hope it doesn't come to that. The flight to Romania took 14 hours. Hazel spent it checking weapons, reviewing intelligence on Volkov's known operations, and staring at that image of Mia. 5 years. How much of her friend remained? How much had been broken beyond repair? The coordinates led to an abandoned Soviet-era military installation 200 kilometers from Bucharest. Hazel arrived at sunset, the sky bleeding red and orange across rusted equipment and crumbling buildings. She went in alone, armed but not armored, ready but not reckless. The compound was silent, too silent. Every instinct screamed trap. But she pressed forward. For Mia. For the woman who'd had her back in a dozen firefights. For the friend who'd been failed by the very system they'd sworn to serve. Deep in the compound's basement, she found her. Mia Sullivan was chained to a wall in a bare concrete room, thinner than Hazel remembered, covered in scars, but her eyes still burned with defiance. "Took you long enough," Mia whispered, her voice hoarse. Hazel's throat closed, tears blurred her vision. "I thought you were dead." "So did I for a while. Then I just decided to survive because I knew you'd come, somehow, someday." The chains were electronic, modern. Hazel worked quickly, her hands steady despite the emotion threatening to overwhelm her. "It's a trap," Mia said quietly. "You know that, right? Volkov wants you both." "I know. And you came anyway." "Always." The chains released with a metallic click. Mia collapsed forward, but Hazel caught her, held her. 5 years of grief and guilt and rage pouring out in a single moment. "Can you walk?" "Not well, but I'll manage." They made it to the stairs before the lights came on. Brilliant, blinding, flooding the basement with harsh white light. Viktor Volkov stepped out of the shadows, flanked by a dozen armed men. "Commander Winter, the Ghost, how kind of you to accept my invitation." Hazel positioned herself between Volkov and Mia, hand moving to her sidearm. "I wouldn't," Volkov said pleasantly. "My men have orders to shoot Chief Sullivan first if you draw. Then you. I prefer to take you alive, but I'm flexible." "What do you want?" "What I've always wanted. Revenge. You killed my brother in Aleppo, destroyed my operations in 3 countries, cost me millions. And you did it all while pretending to be a ghost, a myth, something that couldn't be touched." He smiled, and it was the smile of a man who'd already won. "But ghosts aren't real, Commander. They're just stories, and stories end. Sometimes survival isn't about strength. It's about will, the refusal to break, the determination to see one more sunrise. What would you sacrifice for the truth?" Hazel's mind calculated angles, distances, probabilities. 12 armed men. 1 exit. Mia could barely stand. The odds were impossible, but impossible had never stopped her before. "You want revenge?" she asked, voice steady. "Fine, let her go, keep me. I'm the one who killed your brother." Volkov laughed. The sound echoed off the concrete walls. "Oh, Commander, you misunderstand. I don't just want revenge. I want the world to watch you fall, to see that the ghost was never invincible, just lucky." He pulled out his phone, showing her the screen. A live stream, already broadcasting to thousands of viewers. The image showed Hazel and Mia, surrounded, defeated. Within an hour, every news organization, every military installation, every person who believed in the ghost will watch you die. And with you, the hope that one person can make a difference. Mia's hand found Hazel's, weak but warm. "Don't," she whispered, "don't give him the satisfaction." But Hazel wasn't looking at Volkov anymore. She was looking at the camera, at the thousands watching, At the women at Fort Bragg who needed to see that standing up mattered, at every person who'd ever been told they were powerless. "You're right," she said quietly. "The ghost was just a story, but stories have power. They inspire, they challenge, they change people." She stepped forward, hands raised, making herself completely vulnerable. "You can kill me, broadcast it to the world, but you can't kill what I represent. The idea that one person refusing to accept injustice can shift everything." Volkov's smile faltered. "Those women at Fort Bragg, they found their voices because I showed them it was possible. That video has been viewed by millions now. Congressional hearings have already started. Policy changes are being drafted. The system that protected predators for decades is being torn apart." She took another step closer. "You think killing me ends that? It just makes it stronger. Martyrs are more powerful than ghosts." For the first time, uncertainty flickered across Volkov's face. Hazel's hand moved to her watch, to the tracker Marcus had given her. One press, that's all it would take. But before she could activate it, the lights went out. Darkness flooded the basement, complete, absolute, and in that darkness Hazel moved. Years of training took over, muscle memory from 1,000-night operations. She dropped low, pulling Mia down with her. The gunfire started immediately, muzzle flashes lighting up the room in strobe-like bursts, but Hazel was already moving, using the chaos, the confusion. She disarmed the nearest guard with practiced efficiency, used his weapon to take down two more, moved through the darkness like she'd been born to it. The ghost earned her name in moments like these. When the backup generator kicked in 30 seconds later, 8 of Volkov's men were down. Hazel had Mia behind cover, and 4 remaining guards were frantically searching for targets. But Volkov was gone. "Basement 3, Mia gasped. "He has an escape tunnel pre-planned. I heard them talking." Hazel made a split-second decision. "Can you hold position? Give me a weapon and watch me." Hazel handed her a sidearm, then disappeared into the shadows. The tunnel was narrow, claustrophobic, ancient Soviet construction with exposed pipes and dripping water. Hazel moved fast but silent, every sense alert. She found Volkov 50 meters in, struggling with a jammed door. He spun when he heard her approach, raising his weapon. "Don't," Hazel said. Her gun was already aimed at his center mass. "You wanted to broadcast my death. Fine. Let's give them a different show." She activated her phone's video, propping it up on a pipe. Red light indicating it was recording. Live streaming. "Viktor Volkov, warlord, trafficker, torturer." Her voice was cold. "You wanted the world to watch the ghost fall. Instead, they're going to watch justice." "You can't execute me," Volkov said, but his voice shook. "You're American military. You have rules, laws." "I do," Hazel agreed. "Which is why you're going to turn around and walk back to that basement, where you're going to be arrested by Romanian authorities I contacted before I even landed, where you're going to stand trial for the 5 years you held Chief Sullivan, for the dozens of other women you've trafficked, for every crime you thought you'd escape." She stepped closer, gun never wavering. "You thought holding Mia would destroy me. Instead, you gave me proof, evidence, testimony, everything I need to bury you legally." The Romanian special forces arrived minutes later, flooding through the compound with precision and overwhelming force. Hazel had sent them the coordinates the moment she'd activated her tracker, not for rescue, for arrest. Volkov was taken into custody. His men surrendered. The compound was secured. And through it all, Hazel's phone continued streaming. Millions watching as the ghost delivered not revenge, but justice. Back in the basement, Mia sat against the wall, breathing hard but alive. When she saw Hazel, she smiled. "Always dramatic," says the woman who survived 5 years of captivity. "I had motivation." Mia's expression grew serious. "I heard everything, Fort Bragg, the video, what you started." "What we started," Hazel corrected. "Your story. Your refusal to be silenced even when the system failed you. That's what this was always about. The medical team arrived and Mia was loaded onto a stretcher. But before they took her, she grabbed Hazel's hand. Finish it. Whatever you started at Fort Bragg. Don't let them bury it. Don't let my 5 years be for nothing. I won't. The flight back to the States was different. Hazel sat beside Mia's medical transport watching her friend sleep. 5 years of torture, 5 years of survival, and somehow, impossibly, Mia's spirit remained unbroken. The news coverage was relentless. The Fort Bragg video had been viewed 50 million times. Hazel's live stream from Romania added another 20 million. Congressional subpoenas were being issued. The Secretary of Defense had called for a complete review of military sexual assault policies. Change was happening, real, measurable, lasting change. But Hazel knew this was just the beginning. The hardest battles were still ahead, changing culture, shifting mindsets, ensuring that courage was protected instead of punished. At Andrews Air Force Base, a full military honor guard waited. News helicopters circled overhead. Crowds pressed against barriers, holding signs, chanting, demanding accountability. As Hazel stepped off the plane, she was met by Admiral Corinne Grant, the highest-ranking woman in the Navy. Commander Winter, on behalf of the President, I'm authorized to offer you the Medal of Honor for your actions in Syria, and Chief Sullivan as well. Hazel looked back at the plane, where Mia was being carefully unloaded. We were just doing our jobs, ma'am. No, Grant said firmly. You were doing far more than that. You were proving that our military is only as strong as our weakest link, and that link has been the systematic failure to protect our own from predators within our ranks. She pulled out a folder. The President wants to meet with you both. There's talk of forming a new special operations unit, all female, fully integrated, led by operators who have proven themselves in the field. A token gesture, Hazel said quietly. No, a statement. That America recognizes talent wherever it exists. That gender is irrelevant when measuring capability. That the future of warfare includes every warrior willing to serve. Hazel considered this, and Fort Bragg, Blake and his crew. Court-martial proceedings start next week. Full charges. Every victim's testimony will be heard. The Army is cooperating fully. Grant's expression hardened. The old guard is fighting back, of course, but public pressure is making it impossible for them to protect their own anymore. Mia was wheeled past on a stretcher, conscious now and listening. She caught Hazel's eye and nodded once. We'll consider it, Hazel said, after Chief Sullivan recovers, after we've had time to process everything that's happened. Understood, take the time you need. Grant saluted sharply. Thank you, Commander, for your service, for your courage, for showing us what's possible. Sometimes change requires a catalyst, a moment where the invisible becomes visible, where silence transforms into sound, where one voice, speaking truth, becomes a chorus. Would the reckoning be enough? 6 weeks later, Hazel stood in a hospital room in Germany, watching Mia work through physical therapy. The injuries ran deep. 5 years of malnutrition, torture, and deprivation didn't heal quickly, but every day brought progress. Mia could walk now. Slowly with pain, but she could walk. Stop hovering, Mia said without turning around. It's creepy. Just making sure you're okay. I survived Volkov for 5 years. I think I can handle a treadmill. But there was affection in her voice. After everything, they'd found their rhythm again. The friendship that had been forged in combat and tempered by separation. On the TV in the corner, CNN played coverage of the Fort Bragg trials. Day 18. Mason Blake on the stand, his arrogance long since shattered. 17 women had testified. Their stories eerily similar. A pattern of harassment, assault, and systematic intimidation. They're going to convict, Mia observed, breathing hard as she increased her pace. All of them. Good. But it won't change the culture overnight. You know that, right? Hazel nodded. Change is slow, but it's happening. Applications from women for special operations programs are up 300%. Congress passed new legislation protecting service members who report assault. The Secretary of Defense fired 6 commanders for failing to address harassment in their units. She pulled up her phone, showing Mia a message. And this morning I received this, from Iris Chen, the private who recorded the video at Fort Bragg. Mia read it aloud. Commander Winter, I've been accepted into the Special Operations Pipeline, starting Ranger School next month. Thank you for showing me what's possible. Thank you for proving that courage matters more than size or gender or what anyone tells us we can't do. She's not the only one, Hazel said. I've gotten hundreds of messages. Women who served in silence, who were assaulted and never reported it, who left the military because they didn't see a path forward. They're all saying the same thing. Finally. Finally someone spoke up. Finally someone made them listen. Mia stopped the treadmill, breathing heavily. So what's next for the ghost? The ghost is dead, Hazel said firmly. She died in that changing room when I chose to reveal myself instead of staying hidden. But Commander Hazel Winter, she's just getting started. The President's offer, the all-female unit. Ghost Team, Hazel said. That's what Mia and I are calling it. If we do this, we do it right. Not as a publicity stunt, not as a token gesture. As a fully functional, Tier 1 Special Operations unit with the same training, resources, and authority as any male equivalent. Ambitious. Necessary, because there are women out there, operators, pilots, snipers, tacticians, who have been serving in the shadows, proving themselves without recognition. It's time they stepped into the light. Her phone buzzed again. This time, the message made her go still. What is it? Mia asked. Hazel showed her the screen. A photo of a wall, graffiti in a dozen languages, all saying the same thing. We are the ghosts. We are everywhere. You can't silence us anymore. The hashtag #GhostArmy had gone viral. Women in militaries across the world posting stories, experiences, proof of what they'd endured and overcome. It's bigger than Fort Bragg, Hazel said quietly. Bigger than the American military. It's become a movement. Then lead it, Mia said simply. That's what commanders do. They don't just win battles, they inspire armies. A knock at the door interrupted them. Admiral Grant entered, followed by 2 men in suits, Secret Service. Commander Winter, Chief Sullivan, the President would like to see you, now. The flight to Washington was quick. Hazel spent it reviewing intelligence briefings on potential ghost team candidates, women with records that read like fiction, a helicopter pilot who'd flown 63 combat missions, a sniper with 97 confirmed kills, a combat controller who directed airstrikes while defending a position solo for 4 hours. Each one extraordinary, each one overlooked because of their gender. At the White House, they were led to the Oval Office. The President stood when they entered, moving around her desk to shake their hands personally. Commander Winter, Chief Sullivan, thank you for coming. She gestured to the sofas. Please sit. When they were settled, the President leaned forward, hands clasped. I've read your proposal for Ghost Team. It's ambitious, expensive, and politically it'll be a nightmare. The old guard is already fighting it. Then why are we here, ma'am? Hazel asked. Because I'm tired of fighting wars with one hand tied behind our back. The President's expression hardened. We have the best trained military in the world, but we're excluding half our population from the highest levels of service, not because they can't perform, but because we're afraid of change. She stood, moving to the window overlooking the rose garden. The Fort Bragg incident exposed a cancer, but it also showed us something else. That when we empower our people, when we protect them instead of the predators among us, incredible things become possible. She turned back to face them. Ghost Team will be official, full funding, full support, full authority, but I need you both to understand what you're taking on. Every failure will be magnified. Every success will be dismissed as luck. You'll face skepticism, sabotage, and scrutiny that no male unit would ever endure. Mia spoke for the first time. With all due respect, ma'am, that sounds like Tuesday. The president smiled. I like her, keep her close. Always, Hazel said. Then it's settled. You have 6 months to recruit and train your team. After that, Ghost Team will be operational. The president handed them a folder. Your first mission will be classified, high risk, high visibility. If you succeed, you'll prove that gender is irrelevant in combat. If you fail, we won't fail, Hazel interrupted, because we've been doing this our entire careers. We just finally get to do it with acknowledgement instead of anonymity. Back at the hospital that night, Hazel and Mia sat in comfortable silence, the weight of what they'd agreed to settle around them. 6 months, Mia said finally, to build a team from scratch, to train them to Tier 1 standards, to prove something that shouldn't need proving. Scared? Terrified, you? Same, Hazel smiled, but fear is just recognition of the stakes, and these stakes, they're worth everything. Her phone lit up with another message, then another, then hundreds, applications, endorsements, women nominating themselves or others, the ghost army mobilizing. We're going to change history, Mia said softly. We're going to change the future, Hazel corrected. History already happened. What we do now determines what comes next. And in that moment, looking at her friend who'd survived the unsurvivable, Hazel felt something she hadn't experienced in years. Hope. Real, tangible, powerful hope that the system could change. That courage could triumph over corruption. That justice, delayed but not denied, was finally arriving. The ghost was dead. But Ghost Team was just beginning. And nothing would ever be the same.